So I don't know if you have heard the story about the prodigal son before, but it is about two sons, one older, one younger, and a father. And the younger son decides that he would like his share of money that his father had promised to him earlier than he wanted to give it to the son. But he wanted to take this money, leave the farm that they all lived on, go do whatever he wanted to do with it, live his own life, be his own person apart from his family. But it backfired. It backfired hard. He ended up working for a pig farmer, literally living amongst the pigs, but he was seen even lower than the pigs were. Like, he was not allowed to eat what the pigs were eating. He had to kind of scrounge and look for his own stuff on his own time. It was like he was the lowest of the low. It was not a good situation. So he ended up actually going back to his father and back to his brother, to his home. He walked up, and right away his father saw him from a distance and was so excited to see him coming home to him. And the younger son was scared that, that he wasn't going to forgive him. But thankfully, this father was already just so excited to see his own son. He already had forgiven him. He was ready for him to come home. He got all of his servants to get together a feast to throw this big party. Meanwhile, the older son, who was working out in the field at the farm that day, was coming in from work and hadn't heard about his brother coming home until a servant came up to him to make this big announcement to say, your brother has returned. We are celebrating. We're throwing this big feast. Come celebrate with us. And the older son was just so hurt and upset that this brother of his had left him, left his dad, left his farm, left work to help with the family. And it was like, why are we celebrating him coming home when he had already left us? And he had felt hurt, felt jaded. So it's just this overarching story about the forgiveness that we have from our Lord. When I have read this story in the past, I always think about the younger son and how I'm like him, and I often kind of forget the older son until the very end when you hear about how mad he is. And I always think, well, why are you so mad? It's your family. You should be forgiving of them so easily and so quickly. But I realize that I'm so much like both the younger and the older son. So like the younger son, I have grown up with an older sister, and I, for a long time, felt like I was kind of living in the shadow of my family. I was always Andrea's little sister, or I was always Jody's daughter, whatever, and I never really felt like I was my own person. And so I've always kind of gotten into the rhythm of wanting to be my own person, doing the things that I need to do to work and put my head down and work on that, and kind of ignore help from other people and just do what I needed to do and get it done. And in those moments, I often forget to stop, and I forget to think about what it is that I'm doing, what am I gonna accomplish, and what is this gonna give me? And then when I don't get the outcome that I want, I wonder, well, why? What did I do to deserve this? Why? How come I didn't, achieve what I wanted to do, be in the place of life that I wanted to be in? And then I always get just hit over the head with, well, you didn't ask God for help. You didn't ask your family for help. You didn't ask your friends for help. You tried to do it on your own, and you weren't successful because of that. And I just continually keep failing, and I keep wondering why. And then whenever that happens, I'm just hit with that, and I'm like, okay, I need to now ask forgiveness from God when I don't trust Him initially, and I don't allow Him to come into these places of my life where I do need help. And then the older son, I do all this hard work that I think is hard work, and I put in effort into things. I volunteer different places or whatever it is, and then when I don't get the recognition that I think I deserve, I get upset and I harbor those feelings, and I don't understand, well, I did this thing and I think it was great, and you used it here, but you didn't thank me, you didn't tell me you were grateful for my work, and just expecting that from other people when we can't live life like that. So I am definitely both like the younger and the older son. So looking at that, and I think, okay, well, the younger son clearly went off and he failed. The older son stayed, and he has these harboring feelings towards his younger brother and his father as well. So then looking at my own life and my own failures and my own hurt and my own sin, how do I move on from that? Thinking about the younger son who's coming home, when he comes home, he almost doesn't expect that he should even go to his father. He kind of just goes off and he thinks, oh, I'm going to go back and I'm going to just go into work with all the servants and just work there for a while, and then maybe I'll work my way up to talking to my dad. And so he comes home and he is seeking forgiveness. He doesn't know how he's going to get it. And it just reminds me of this quote from a philosopher named Henry Nouwen. And Henry Nouwen wrote this book all about the prodigal son, which is a painting actually done by Rembrandt. And in this painting, it shows kind of different layers of all the people that are in this story. So the younger son, the father, some servants. And then if you look really closely, if you look up this picture, in the background, in the shadow, you can see the older son lurking. And Henry Nouwen just spent like weeks on weeks on weeks going back every day to this museum, looking at this painting, and each day getting something more from it. And he wrote an entire book about it. And one of his quotes is, one of the greatest challenges of the spiritual life is to receive God's forgiveness. And when I think about that, and I think about what we're taught when we're growing up, when we're asking for forgiveness is, okay, well, you go, you ask God for forgiveness, you receive it right away, which is true. And that's not wrong. That's not wrong teaching. But looking at it further, do we feel like when we ask for forgiveness that God has forgiven us? Do we feel that internally? I don't know. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it takes me weeks, days, months, sometimes even years to find that forgiveness inside. What does that look like for you? When I think about this younger son returning home, his father has already forgiven him, just like our Father has forgiven us. But he still asks for forgiveness, and that's something that we still need to do too. We can't expect that God's forgiven me, I don't need to go ask for his forgiveness. That ask still needs to happen. It's still important. And then going back to the older son who is holding on to this bitterness, there's things in my life that I hold on to for way longer than I should. So how do I let that go? How do I stop thinking, oh, this person, they wronged me 5 years ago and I'm still upset about it? Like, how do you move on for these things? What if we, instead of sitting and dwelling in this place, what if we focus on the gifts and gratitude that God gives us? So instead of dwelling in our hurt, in our pain, in our resentment, we chose this gratitude. If we choose to look at the good things that God has given us, instead of sitting in the negative, in the negative thoughts that so often consume our minds, and realizing that through the Father, He not only offers forgiveness and reconciliation, that He also offers healing, and He provides joy in every moment if you just look for it, and if you just, instead of turning your face and focusing on the earthly things, the earthly hurts, all that, turning it and focusing it on Him and His scriptures and His word that He's teaching you, that you have access to. So I want to end on 4 things. The first is to ask God for His merciful forgiveness. Like I said, that ask still needs to happen. We can't just assume that God's forgiven us even though He has. We have to feel it in our hearts that He's forgiven us. The second thing is to forgive ourselves. This is often something that takes a while to do, depending on how we feel that sin has affected our lives or even affected the people around us. And the third thing is to gain reconciliation from others or certain situations. Sometimes people have a bad day and they take it on us. And sometimes we have to realize that and realize that they're not targeting us all the time. It's sometimes just something that's going on for them. And so ways that you can do that is just pray for that person. You don't have to pray with them, just pray for them and pray, whatever's going on in their life, that God can work through that too. And the fourth and final thing is to seek healing. In all of these things, I feel like we get hurt so easily as people. This culture around us has made, I know for me, very more sensitive than I want to be. But we need to seek healing from our Father through those moments, through those times, through those hard situations that we get put in. We can't do it alone. We need to actively ask for help from our Father, and everything that we do, from our friends, from our family, we need to ask we can't do it by ourselves. So let's do it.